Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. As Michael said, my name is Kevin Bury. I'm a user experience designer by profession. I've worked at a number of different companies, including LinkedIn, Yahoo, Apple, WebMD, and others. In 2015, I left my full-time position as principal designer at LinkedIn, and I started my own consulting business. So let me share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. So user experience design. UX design has its roots in human factors, graphics design, industrial design, and cognitive science. Although it's been around for quite a while, UX design really took off with the introduction of the web and then again with mobile. Companies learned that ease of use is a huge differentiator that can make or break a product or a company. The tools used to create successful designs have changed a lot over the years, but the fundamental design process remains the same. Let's start with the team. As a designer, it's important to remember that you are not developing the product by yourself, at least not usually. You're part of a team. In most companies, that team includes product management, engineering, user research, quality assurance, marketing, sales, and others. The relationship between design, product management, and engineering is particularly important. Think of it as three legs on a stool. If the relationship is solid, amazing things can happen. If one or more of the legs breaks, the whole thing can collapse. Foundation design. Regardless of the design project you're embarking on, it is important to begin with foundation design analysis. What problems are we trying to solve? What is the business case? Who is the target audience? What tasks do our users need to perform? And what platforms are important to them? Web, mobile, voice? You may have a great design, but if it is optimized for the wrong type of user and or wrong usage pattern, it will fail. And you will feel very, very silly. User personas. It is important to identify who the product will be used by. Typically, there are multiple types of users. Personas can help you identify and prioritize. So let's take an example. Let's say you're developing an application for ordering food from a restaurant. Well, there are different types of users involved in this. There are different types of people who will be using your application. User type A could be the person who's browsing your menu, who's making a selection of what they wish to eat, and then putting in their account and charge information. User type B could be the person receiving the order and putting together the order and assembling it and making sure the billing is working and all those things. Then user type C might be the person who's actually making the delivery. Obviously, this is going to change from product to product, but the important thing to remember is you're not just developing a product for a single individual, and you're certainly not developing it for yourself. It's important for you to understand those people you are designing it for and to tailor the application for them. Use cases, also known as user stories. Identify the key tasks you expect users to perform with your product. As with personas, use cases are identified and validated with user research. And we'll be talking more about user research in a minute. Over time, the use cases become a prioritized list of requirements. In other words, you decide that in order to support this set of use cases, these are the things you need to build. These are the requirements. These are the features that you need to build in your product. Product management, engineering, marketing, sales, and others on the team also need to participate in the development of personas and use case and sign off on them. Here's an example of a use case. This is for a recruitment application. It's for an application that's to help a hiring team find and make an offer and hire someone. So the green persona there is the recruiter or sourcer. They're searching the web and they find someone who seems to meet the requirements of one of their open jobs. So they input that information into the system, and it becomes a profile for that user, and they share that with the hiring team, hiring manager, and others on the team who will view it. They might be viewing it on a mobile device or on the web, and they will respond to the recruiter and say, yeah, this person seems good, or no, they don't seem like a match. Well, if they do seem like a match, then the recruiter reaches out to that candidate and says, hey, we found your information on the web. You look like you'd be a good match, would be interested in talking to us. The candidate responds. In this case, they respond, seems like a really interesting position, but this isn't the right time. Check back with me in 6 months. So the recruiter then puts that in the system, and it sets up a reminder to remind them in 6 months to go back to that candidate and check in with them again. So that's just one example of a use case, but you can see how breaking it down like this really helps you understand what your user needs to do. User research. It is important to get user feedback at every stage of the process. Early in the process, user interviews and focus groups could help you identify needs and market opportunities. Low fidelity wireframes can be used in exploring various options and validating them with your target audience. We'll be looking more at wireframes in a moment. As the fidelity of the designs increases and starts to solidify, you need to continue to get feedback. Interactive prototypes of your design can be used in early usability testing. Design should be iterated on throughout the development process. Nobody gets design right the first time. You have to be open-minded, get feedback, and evolve your design as you move forward. Some companies also, once a product is in beta, it would be released to a limited set of users to get their feedback before it was distributed to everyone. Low fidelity design, also known as wireframes. So this basically is the beginning of, these are the screens, these are the views that we think users will need to perform the tasks that have been identified. And they're low fidelity because, as you can see, they don't have a lot of detail to them. That means they're also very inexpensive to create and discard if you go down the wrong path, and you will go down the wrong path. Some teams will have a war room where they put personas, use cases, wireframes, and designs up on the wall where everybody can go in and comment, put up post-it notes and such. Wireframes can also be used to begin to understand the flow that the user will take through your application as they perform their tasks. Once you arrive, and by you, I mean the entire team, arrives at a set of personas and use cases that you all agree are appropriate and can be sold and will, there's a business case for, then in order to support those use cases, you will have to build a set of features, right? And so this becomes a prioritized feature list. And basically it says that for the next release of the product, or it might be the first release of a new product, in order to meet our needs, we need to include this set of features. Now, there'll be a bunch of other features that'll be on the table that will be considered for a future release. And so I call this the line. And it doesn't mean that the other features aren't important, but they're not the priority for this next release. And it's important to draw the line because it's very easy for a team to get bogged down with feature creep. And by having a finite set of features, the entire team, engineering, QA, marketing, sales, everyone else can plan around that and say, okay, by October 1st, when this product releases, this is the things that it will support, and we can begin to build resources around that. High fidelity design. So the next step is to take your designs into high fidelity. So this is just an example of some high fidelity designs. These were done in Figma, which is one of the premier tools these days. And as you can see, there's a lot of detail to each of the screens. And you can see that things are componentized. The screens, and the menu bars, and the menus, and the toolbars, and all that stuff. And the reason they're componentized like that is that these resources will be used in a variety of different ways. They'll be used in design specifications, and they'll be used in interactive prototypes, which we'll be talking about both. So this is an example of a design overview or a design specification. And basically, it's a description of the product that is in development. And so you can see it's a mobile product. Now, there's a prototype, so there's a link here that tells readers in your team how to access the prototype. And then it starts to go through in detail the product. And you can see it's using the assets that we just looked at. Now, this design specification is 59 pages long, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I just want to give you a sense of the detail in it. It's the calendar, the actions menu, schedule a meeting screen, right? So there's a lot of detail. I'm just going to scroll down here towards the end because there's onboarding screens. There's, error messages. There's all kinds of things. So there's a tremendous amount of detail that goes into this. Now, the designs that are done in a tool like Figma are very effective for a number of reasons. They can be exported in a number of different resolutions, depending on the platform that's being developed. And also, there's an inspector that will show the CSS involved for the asset. So engineering, QA, everyone else will have access to your Figma designs, and will be able to, number one, comment on them, but also be able to export resources as they are needed. Now, one of the things to use those assets for is an interactive prototype. So I build an interactive prototype. The example I like to give is, suppose you're trying to describe a dance, let's say a very elaborate ballet dance. You could describe it in pictures and words. The dancer throws up their arm, spins, does this, but you'd never capture the dynamic properties of the event. You'd never really get the feel of it at all. And the same is true for a design, particularly with mobile, where we have micro interactions, we have swipes, we have lots of animations. Obviously, the design specification can't capture those either. An interactive prototype can. The prototype can also be used, could be shown to the team can use it, could be shown to potential users, used in usability testing. A number of the prototype tools today, such as Figma and others, have clients on the mobile phone. So once you build the prototype, you're actually able to interact with it directly on your phone or on your device. And that's huge because it communicates the animations, it communicates the micro interactions. The doing this sort of work allows you to uncover problems early before a huge amount of investment is made in the wrong direction. The worst thing in the world is to ship a product and find out and get feedback and say, oh no, this isn't what we wanted at all. If you're going to hear that, you want to hear it very, very early. So that's why you want to get feedback early and often and iterate. So this is an example, a simple example of a prototype, but it does show some of the micro interactions. So it shows scrolling, right? You're able to open, in case of news story, you're able to expand it. You're able to swipe between stories. You're opening up the user's profile. So you can see you're able to capture the look and feel of the product very well in a prototype like this. If you're a startup, you can also show this to investors. It's kind of a fun thing to do when you're making a pitch. Say, here, try it out, and pass it across the conference room, which I have done. It's a huge hit. Let's see. Oh, next, let's talk about accessibility. It is important that your designs work well for everyone, regardless of their abilities. In addition to task personas, it is often useful to create personas for people with disabilities, users who are deaf, paralyzed, or partially or completely blind. These personas serve as touchstones for you as you create and evolve your designs. Obviously, you also want to get your product in front of people with disabilities so you can watch them use it and gather feedback. There are many tools out there to help you design with disabilities. A couple of examples are tools that will show you the contrast, text size, font on color background. You can put that in, it'll give you a number, and the number will tell you if it falls within the ADA guidelines for it. There are tools, Mac OS, for instance, has a built-in screen reader that you can play around with, and you can see what it would be like to use your application with just a keyboard, where you're tabbing through choices, and the screen reader is reading to you as you do that. It's really an interesting thing to do. If you haven't done it, I totally encourage you to do so. Voice is another emerging technology that can be very useful for certain types of disabilities. So handoff and follow through. As we said earlier, it's important for the designer to work closely with their team throughout the development process. Handoff is perhaps not the right word, because you want engineering, product management, QA, you want them involved. You want to give them access to all of your assets throughout the process so that they can use them and give you feedback and begin to plan. This collaboration has become much easier in recent years with the emergence of tools like Figma and Sketch. They make it much easier to share assets and to export assets. The assets, because most of them are vector-based, they can be exported in different formats and in different resolutions. And this is because the application is probably going to run on a number of different platforms: web, iOS, Android, iPads, all kinds of things. Conclusion. Product development, of which design is a part, can be very exciting. And there's few things more exciting than being part of a team and you launch your product. Sometimes that'll be at midnight. That's fine. And it gets out and it's live and everybody sees it. There's blog posts around it. And it's there's usually champagne involved. It's very, very fun. Working with teams is wonderful. If the team has followed the process correctly, then the chance of failure when you launch is minor, since if the product direction was incorrect, you would have known this much before launching and would have made adjustments as needed or started over completely. Anyway, that's about it. I thank you for your time, and I'll be sticking around if anyone has questions.